Well, hello, Dragon family. Happy Thursday. Coming to you live here. Oh, just realizing my solar dragon is, my sun dragon is a little crooked. And I'll apologize first. I know that there's some background noise. I've got one of my neighbors has some power equipment going on periodically. So we'll just ignore that like it doesn't exist. It's outside of our realm. Hopefully you can't hear it. But had some great questions this week. I'm actually not even going to be able to get to all the questions this week, so I'll push them to next week's live, some of them. But one gal wrote in who's been part of our Dragon family for years and had some really interesting things that she was curious about. So let me go into these questions for you. There's three. They're in the description of the video. One is, what is the connection of swan wings? So that came up because last week we had a great discussion on dragon wings versus angel wings and how that activates in your field as you're expanding. And so she had an experience with swan wings and wanted to know more about that. And then how to best work with the 369 Tesla energies when activated. So that's the triangulation energies, and the geometry is really amping up. So I'll talk about that. And then how can power places help us to activate? So three really great questions, and we'll just dive right into those because that will be pretty much a full discussion for today. So the swan wings I find very interesting that she brought in, because in my work several years ago, maybe early on, maybe more than that, maybe like 5 or 6, it became really apparent to me that in densifying down, so when we have the crystal dragon energy split to create the polarized field of the black and white streams, and then allowing the elemental field to come in, within that splitting, that polarizing, one of the dragon streams of energy actually split, instead of going into black and white, went into what we consider like masculine, feminine, and it went into swan phoenix. So the phoenix being that masculine energy, the swan being the feminine energy. And so swan wings being something would indicate incarnations working with that pure feminine energy. It might have had to do with priesthoods. I remember the priestesses of the swan being a trigger word that came in several years back also, that I think I even talked about it on a live once, might be very triggering, the priestesses of the swan, because it's not a very common term, but it's definitely one that when you hear it, if it resonates in your body, there's something there for you to explore. So mainly the swan wings are representation of either memory. So if you're having swan wings activate, they might not necessarily be with a dragon form. They could be, and really showing you this is connected to the dragon energy and that split into feminine with power. But it may have just also been swan wings where you're actively in a different form than, say, human, working with the divine feminine energies. So let that be sort of a guide to take you forward further in that exploration and trigger those memories. And for those that have phoenix, you might have phoenix wings. You might have a lot of phoenix energy around you. And that's that masculine stream trying to wake up within you or show you pieces that have import for you to remember and explore. So I just love that because that's a really uncommon question. I don't have a lot come in asking about swan or phoenix, but if that's hitting you, that's really what it's about. It's that polarized stream, and anything bringing them back together, bringing it back to center line. You might have, say, more work to do with the feminine side, or maybe it's showing you, I've got my swan wings, I have more work to do with the masculine side, and everybody's equation will be different in that. So how best to work with the 369 Tesla energies when activated? So what this person was, I feel like what they were indicating in asking the question is, having done a lot of interpersonal work, having a lot of energy work, they were feeling this activation of the multiple trines through their bodies. And so for me, the 12, it actually goes up to 12, because the dragons work with those 4 trines that are part of the, if you look way back in the feeds of the Eye of the Dragon program that I used to run, I had a symbol in the Eye of the Dragon that had the 4 trines from the 4 layers that the dragons come and work with us, and that being, say the Sirian, the Orion, the Middle Earth and Deep Earth trines of energy coming into our crystalline core. So when those are activating, for me, it's about getting the full geometry spinning, getting all 4 trines spinning to pull you into the central crystalline core. So how do you work with that? You visualize and actively work into seeing all of those energies spinning simultaneously to pull you into your crystalline core, because that's the completion. Activating that is a completion back through that gateway with the central core that is crystalline to activate your own full diamond or crystalline DNA moving towards diamond that has no occlusions. And in that opens you up into that next level with the 5th dimensional bandwidth expansion, where the Lyrans are holding a very different geometric patterning. It's based on the Star of 8, on 4-based system. So it could be cubic, it could be star patterns, but you'll see that geometry as you go through the crystalline core shift and open up into something like Star of 8 or 4-based patterns around you. And what that's doing is helping you activate your own geometric signature, because your soul level signature has a geometry associated with it that as you progress in your evolution from inception, like soul creation, to where you be in this moment, your soul gets more and more complex. Everything you master and add to it, those are geometries that pull in and activate. So that's what I would say with, if you're feeling the 3, 6, 9 geometries, and that I go up to 12 with it, I would say try to get them all spinning, try and get them activated into the center point, because that's a gateway. That's going to take you through into that next expansion. So hopefully that makes sense to the beautiful lady, the beautiful dragon in our family that asked the question. And then her final question was, how can power places help us to activate? And I think this is the most applicable to everybody at this point, because there are a lot of power places on the planet. So some of you know, say Sedona, where there's energy vortices, the Bosnian pyramids, Machu Picchu, Glastonbury, Avebury, Stonehenge, all the circles, all the stone circles. There's serpent mounds. There are incredible power places around the planet. And what those do for us is help us get activated into our cellular memory. So sometimes we go to those places, and I know before my work started in earnest, before my awakening even, I was drawn to travel a lot of places. And in hindsight, looking at those, they were all power places. They all had significance now that's showing up in my dragon work, that are either chakras or portals or things that I'm now able to project myself back to because I've been there physically. But what I look back and see is that they held activation keys for me even when I wasn't awake. That by being in those places, something happened energetically within me that helped me get to that place of awakening. So even if you're awake, being drawn to those places, it's because they have keys and codes for you. And I do believe that there are just pure energetic keys that are inherent within the grids. That's what the dragons do in holding the grids. That's why even on the book, it says the dragons hold the keys. They quite literally hold the keys to our ascension and our full activation into our light bodies because of those pieces in the power grid. But I do also believe that we've left ourselves keys and codes in specific places that have import for us individually. So like I had to go to Scotland and didn't really understand why, but I was really, really driven to do the West Highland Way. So I walked from Glasgow all the way up to Fort William and had a very significant soul retrieval happen along the shores of Loch Lomond as I was going by there. I had left pieces of myself, and there was something within drawing me back to that energetically to complete that, to pull it back into myself. And I didn't have to do anything. It was spontaneous. Just by being in the area, it's like a magnetic thing that pulls it together. So sometimes being called to specific locations, you will find either soul retrieval piece happening or that there's something coming out of the ground that is something you left yourself. We do leave ourselves keys and codes in specific pockets in the time-space continuum or dimensionally where we can go recapture them or pull them into this dimensional overlay. So that's how I see power places being so significant for each of us. And Tanya, I hope that answers your questions. I felt like they were a great series of questions that really sort of tie together, but are different for every person listening at different levels. So yeah, that feels really complete on those answers. If that wasn't enough, or if that triggered more questions from some of you, please either email me, araya@dragonwithin.com, or post them in the comments here on the video, whether you're on YouTube on the replay, or here I see a few of you live, whether you catch it live or on the replay, I mean in the Facebook group, wherever it is. If you post the comments, I always see them. It might be delayed just because of when I get to seeing stuff, but I will see them and respond to them on a future live. So hopefully that was fairly clear. But if it triggers in your activation, like maybe a specific thing came up and you're like, oh, but does this apply? Is this what you're talking about? You know, in an email, if it's just specifically for you, I can actually respond very quickly to that. But if it's a question that will benefit everybody, I do like to do them on lives like this to have a broader discussion. So I'm going to leave it with that. I do feel drawn. I've been really enjoying drawing cards for the group lately. And I know we had interesting cards last week. There were 2 that unfolded. So let's see what card wants to pull today. What dragon wants to work with us today? I have a group this afternoon, which is my ongoing quantum flight. Those are all the people that have finished the quantum flight program that we keep meeting monthly. It's an amazing group of beings. So I've had energy around me specifically with like a deep burgundy color today. And I'm not sure if it's associated with what's happening in our group as a whole here as the Dragon family, or if it's more directly associated with that group. But let's see what comes out from the Dragon deck as I feel where it's wanting to split. For those that are today on the live and those that are going to catch the replay, the energy read for today, Thursday, October 24th. And it's splitting right here. Let's see what that is. Oh, interesting. We got the pearl again. The pearl came up last week, you guys. So this is really interesting because I feel like this is directly connected to the discussion we just had. Pearls are Akash. This is where the dragons hold their Akashic records, is in your pearl. So it's about wisdom. It's in soul wisdom, enlightenment, history. That to me is directly related particularly to the locations, power place locations that we are drawn to and how important they are to work with, because that's where we get our soul wisdom back. And so even this discussion with the swan wings, that's part of your soul history if that's coming in. This is, and even the 369, activating into that higher geometry, that's your enlightenment, that's your soul wisdom. So that card, the pearl, is all of these pieces. All 3 questions that we just dove into are connected to you recapturing and recovering your own dragon pearl and being able to use all that innate knowing, connecting to it. Because when you go through that gateway, through that crystalline gateway and into the next expansion, where you can feel and connect with the next level geometries that are part of the 5th dimensional realm that we're moving into, that perspective point, it moves you into a space of pure knowing. It moves you into that merge with yourself where you have access to all your soul records. So that's very specifically what the pearl is talking about in relation to every one of the questions and topics we discussed today. Totally applicable. So I find it amazing that that's the card that came through. So take that as a general theme right now of what you're working with, is getting your full access to your Akashic records back and letting that come in the breadcrumbs and pieces that it is, and having absolute trust in that process. You can't grasp at it. You can't like dive in and go, give me, I want to know. You have to trust and surrender to what's coming in every moment and find the perfection in it and where it ties together. Let it come, don't force it. All right, so thanking the dragons for that beautiful message from the pearl, hoping you can move closer to finding yours. It's funny, even looking at this sun dragon here, it looks like he's holding the sun as his pearl, the way that it's in the background there, like he's holding onto the sun like it's his pearl, and in a way it is. That's his history, that's his birthplace. So have a beautiful weekend. We'll see you next week for the end of October. Can you believe it, guys? We're already at the end of October, and so much happening. So much happening. So big hugs to my entire dragon family. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.